All right, here we go. So I think we're all ready now. In this lesson, we're going to build the evil robot that's going to end humanity. No pressure at all. Okay. So far we've talked about variables and we've talked about arrays, and we see some of the things that we can do. But now what we want to do is talking about. We want to talk about decisions. Um, Before we dive deeper into how we can write code that will allow the program to make decisions, let's go back and focus on the data type Boolean. Boolean gets its name from the mathematician and philosopher George Boole. George Boole studied the laws of thought and reasoning, and he is considered one of the fathers of computer science. A key feature that Boole studied and mathematized was the science of choice, particularly binary choice. All right. Um, Numerically, binary is represented by 1 and 0. In Boolean logic, binary is represented by true and false, respectively. So you can see numerically, when we talk about binary, we're talking about ones and zeros. Boolean logic is true and false. Therefore, true and false are values that not only can be stored in variables, but we can also write expressions that will evaluate to either true or false. And see, you can see here as an example, I have var is true, a variable is true that I set to true. Okay. And then you can see console.log 9 is equal to 5 plus 5, and that will evaluate to false. So we can do things, we can write expressions with Boolean logic as we have been with arithmetic logic. And here we go. We have our Boolean operators. Let's look at them again. And I'm going to type them up here in Visual Studio Code. So, and bring this down just a hair. Okay. So here I have a new folder. So I have a folder. This is lesson 2. Inside of the lesson 2, you can see that I have my JS folder inside of it with an app.js file. And you can see that my index.html file is a sibling to my JS folder. Okay. So now I'm going to start up this once again, show you how we do it. And then after that, I'm gonna let you all have it so you can go back and watch these videos if you need to see how to add your script to your HTML document. But anyways, here we go. Let's say HTML:5. And I'm going to right here inside the body, I'll just make a H1 and I'll just say decisions. Then I'm going to add my script. And again, I want script : source, that abbreviation right there. And I will pull up my script element along with the source attribute. And I will say inside the quotes, JS. My JS should pop up because this index.html is a sibling to JS. I hit tab. There's the app.js. I hit tab again. There we go. So that's done. Shouldn't have to go back in there anymore. Now I'm going to come over here to app.js and start this up and write a comment. Boolean, yet again. And so we have our Boolean operators. We have 2 equal signs. And this means is equal to. So we talked a little bit about the assignment operator and how a single equal sign does not mean equals here in the land of JavaScript. What it does mean is assignment, gets. If we want to say something is equal, then we use two equal signs here. And that means is equal to. If I use three equal signs, this means is strictly equal to. And we will look at the difference of those. We have the chevron where the opening is to the left, and that is greater than. We have the chevron where the opening is facing to the right, that is less than. We have a chevron opening to the left with the equal sign is greater than or equal to. Chevron opening to the left, equal sign is less than or equal to. And we also have a bang equal sign. Do I have that included there? Yep, I do. And that is not equal to. So these are our Boolean operators, okay? And before we go some more into this, let me do a demo of why or how this works and how it's different from arithmetic, okay? If I say console.log 5 plus 7, that should return 12, correct? Because 5 plus 7 is equal to 12. That 5 plus 7 is 12. That's true. That is correct, rather. That is different from console.log 5 plus 7 is equal to 12. Is there anybody that would care to explain why these two expressions are different? Yes, expound, please. Yes, correct. Correct. Exactly. This first expression, this is I like to call it, an algebraic expression. I mean, that's what it is. What I like to call it is what it is. It's an algebraic expression. Okay. And an algebraic expression, what you have is an infinite possibility of solutions. It may have only one correct solution, but the possibility of solutions that we have is infinite because we're going to the left and right of the number line in this case here. So it can be, we have an infinite number of solutions. And in this case, in this instance right here, this evaluates to 12. Okay. That is different from a Boolean expression. A Boolean expression, you only have two solutions, or two possible solutions. True or false. That's it. So the way I am very passionate about the way that math is being taught in America in particular. I can't speak for other nations. I can speak for America because I pay taxes and vote here and serve on jury when I get called. So I am passionate about it, and um, for whatever reason, whether educators don't know or they're hampered down by time or some other constraints, uh, mathematics is taught very haphazardly, which is an injustice to the student because they're not receiving um, the proper education when it comes to mathematics. You can say the same thing for other subjects, but I'm speaking on behalf of math. Um, and well, math didn't get weird. It's just the way that they're trying to present it is where math didn't do anything, but they're trying to find different ways to teach it. But the reason why they're doing that is not so that we gain knowledge and understand these concepts in our lives better, but so that we can pass tests. Um, when I was teaching math, my concern was not the test grades or anything like that. I would let them know, hey, if you can do these things, the test scores are gonna show. All right, but what you're learning is procedure. You're learning process, how to put these things together and solve problems in the most efficient way. And if you learn how to solve problems in an efficient way, if I teach you the procedure, then it doesn't matter what problem you get, and if your solution is wrong, you can go back and look and see where you made a mistake and correct that. And I know I'm going on a tangent here, but when it comes to this in particular, um, we were always just kind of taught or were just allowed to think, if they didn't tell us explicitly, we were allowed to think that these two expressions are the exact same thing, when in fact they are not. And again, simply they're not, because one has an infinite possibility of solutions. I could say 15, I can say, negative 22, I can say whatever, which is a possible solution, not the correct solution, but it is possible. All right. This one, however, this expression only has two possible solutions in the set, true or false. And that's why they're different. Um, but again, I know I went on a tangent, but that's that on that. Here are Boolean operators. If you want to have discussion about that and other things in education, we can discuss that offline off of YouTube, because I don't want them to ban me. But here are our Boolean operators, okay? And again, they will evaluate to true or false. And we also have what are called logical operators. Okay, I'm going to add those here. We have two ampersands, that means and. Two pipes, that means or. And we have the bang, and that means not. So these are our logical operators. Or let me list that. Logical operators. Okay. And we'll explore how those work. Okay, so here we go. Let's look at how logical operators work with Boolean. Let's play with that. So I got var is true, set that to true, and var is false, and set that to false. So let's do that here. Oh, this is going to evaluate to true, by the way. So I said var is true, and I set that to true. And I have var is false, set that to false. Okay, so we'll start with this right here. And the first thing I have here is true. Let's say console.log Well, let's do a console.clear first. Get that out of the way. All right, then I'm going to say console.log is true and is true. That should evaluate to true. If I say console.log is true and is false, that should evaluate to false. And I'm going to do console.log. Just do this. I always just, and I know why I don't do it. And the reason why I don't like to do that right there is I'm just petty. Meaning, so again, with the image abbreviations, I can type out log like so, and then you see this second right here with a little box log. I hit tab, that will log to the console like so. I can easily do that, but I'm petty, and I'll talk about that later. I can say is true or is false. Now here my cursor is after the E, and I want to move my cursor to the end of the line. So if I want to move it to the end of the line, if you're using a Mac, you can press Command and right, and that'll move it to the front. Or if I go to the left, it'll move it to the front. To the right, it'll move to the end of the line. If you are using a PC, you press Alt and left or right, and that will move your arrow. I mean, you move your cursor to the front or the end of the line. Pause that right here and test it out if you want to. Anyway, this should return true. Okay, so what does this mean? How do we get that? And let me go live here. We're going live. Anybody? Anybody? We're going live. Bill O'Reilly when he Inside Edition. All right, so here we go. Refresh this. There we see true, false, true, as was stated. And why is that? You may ask. Close you up. So the AND operator that we have here, the AND operator basically says the statement, I'll say statement is true when both clauses evaluate to true. So if both of these evaluate to true, then the statement is true. Okay, so here on the second one, this evaluates to false because I have true and false. False evaluates to false. This is false is going to evaluate to false. Therefore, this statement is false. Or the or operator, again, the two pipes, we're saying the statement is true when at least one clause is true, or at least one clause evaluates to true. So here I have true or false. One of those statements, one of those clauses is true. Therefore, this statement evaluates to true. And that's how the let's see what happened now. That's how it evaluates to true. Let me fix this up real quick. All right, there we go. Okay, so you can see here each expression has two clauses within them. When merged with the AND operator, both clauses must evaluate to true for the entire expression to be true. That's what I just stated. And then with the OR operator, when two or more clauses are merged with the OR operator, only one of the clauses must evaluate to true for the entire expression to be true. All right. All right. So here we go. Now that we're masters at Boolean algebra, all of a sudden, with those few slides that I gave, we can see how it is used to make decisions in programming and ultimately create the evil robot that will take the human race over. And we do that with the if statement, because now that's right, Robin, the evil robot. Because what we're doing, well, what we've done thus far is we've written a command and the computer executed the command when we wrote it. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to give the computer the decision to make a command. To execute a command or not. And we start off with the if statement. Okay. And so let's do that. Let me check something real quick. I got some room. Bring it down some. There we go. All right. So I'm going to move my clear down here. All right. And first thing we have is the if statement. And here is the syntax for the if statement. Okay. We use the if keyword. Okay. That is a keyword designated in JavaScript. And in parentheses, I will type a condition. So if some condition, and then I open my curly braces. Here I use curly braces. Okay. And inside these curly braces, we do stuff. So let's talk about this. Okay. If a condition, then we do stuff. First, again, we need the if keyword, and this lets JavaScript know, okay, I have a decision to make. All right. And then inside of the parentheses, I place a condition. And this condition will evaluate to either true or false. Okay. And I'm saying if this condition is true, then I will go inside these curly braces. And these curly braces, that contains my code block. And that is where we do stuff. Do I have an example in here? Yep. Let's try this example because this is always me. So var am hungry, we're going to set that to true. So come along with me. We'll say var am hungry. And again, we can take Boolean and store that inside of a variable like so. So var am hungry is true. So then I'm going to say if, open my parentheses, am hungry, open my curly braces. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to say console.log I'm hungry. What time is lunch? Okay. And when I go to my console, I get I'm hungry. What time is lunch? Why? Because am hungry has been set to true. And I come over here and I say, hey, if am hungry, which is true, then do this stuff inside of the curly braces, which is going to console I'm hungry. what time is lunch? So let's look at it. We use the if keyword to let JavaScript know to expect a decision structure. So that, again, that if is a keyword, say, hey, I need a decision structure right here. Inside the parentheses, we place a condition. And inside the curly braces, we write what's called a code block. And the block is a piece of code that is separated from the rest of the file. This is important to know later. And if the condition, or what's in the parentheses, evaluates to true, the code block will execute. Otherwise, nothing will happen. All right. So let's go back and look at this. And I'm going to set am hungry to false. Here, am hungry is set to false. And when I go to my console, nothing is there. We didn't do anything. We say, hey, are you hungry? Am hungry? True or false? If it's false, don't do anything at all. It just disregards this code block. It acts as if it never existed. But when I set this to true, there you get, I'm hungry. What time is lunch? Because am hungry is true. All right, let's move on. When using the if statement, if the condition evaluates to false, we see that nothing will happen like we just did. Sometimes we will want the program to do something even if the condition is false. And in this case, we use the if-else statement to do this. So now we're adding a chain to this, or we're chaining our decision structure. So let's come over here. And we have if-else, the if-else statement. And the syntax for that is this. We'll say if a condition, this looks like the first one. So if there's a condition, or if this evaluates to true, then we want you to do stuff. And right after this curly brace right here, I'm going to say else and open up a new set of curly braces. And here I'm going to do something else. So we're saying, hey, if this condition is true, do stuff, else do something else. Because again, sometimes we want the program to execute if something is false, if a condition is false. So let's build on the same example. I'm going to say, I'm going to leave am hungry up there. I'm going to say, hey, if am hungry, and matter of fact, let's do this. I'm going to type if, and when I do that, I can see that right here, it says if statement, okay? And I have this right here that says if else. If I go to if else, press tab, you can see that it already, Visual Studio Code will create my structure there for me. Sometimes, you know, it can be helpful to do that. I personally don't do that because I like the muscle memory. I like my fingers, you know, knowing exactly what to do. Have my mind program my fingers to do exactly as I want them to. But you can simply do that because if is a keyword in JavaScript and is saying, hey, about to build a structure. So I can say, hey, if else, I can come over here again to the if else statement and press tab, and it'll pull up my structure. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say if am hungry, then I want you to console.log I'm hungry. When is lunch? Okay. here, I'm going to say else, open up another set of curly braces, console.log, I just ate. Now I need a nap. So here, with this this decision structure here, using the if-else statement, I'm saying, hey, if am hungry evaluates to true, console.log, I'm hungry when it's lunch. Else, do something else. The other thing we'll do is I just ate, now I need a nap. So I come over here to my console, I'm hungry when it's lunch. When I set am hungry to false, this first statement, we won't see anything here. It's not going to do anything here, right? Because there's no else going on. It's either going to evaluate to true or it's not going to do anything. However, here, this code block will not get read because am hungry is false. So it's going to disregard this. Else, meaning it's going to execute this block right here, which is I just ate. Now I need a nap, which is partially true because I didn't just eat, but I do need a nap. But that's if else, and that's how that works. So if a condition is true, if the first code block will execute. Else, which means the condition is false, the second block will execute. And so you can see here, am hungry is set to false. So it disregards this right here, and then it will execute this second block. There's more. So yeah, we've been talking about binary, true, false, 0, 1, but we don't live in a binary world. We have multiple choices, okay? And sometimes we want to have multiple choices when making a decision. And in which case we use the else if statement. And that's what it's called, else if instead of if else. And let's look at that. So we have the else if statement. Okay. And this is how we're able to handle multiple conditions. So I can say if there's a condition, this is works like before. We're going to do stuff. Then here, instead of just saying else, I say else if, and I need to add another condition. So else if another condition, in which case we will do something else. And I can chain these as much as I need to. So I can add more else ifs if I want to. I'm just gonna leave it right there, and I'll say else we will do this. And this is the structure for an else if statement. We're just chaining it. So in other words, we're just adding more stuff, more options. So if a condition is true, we do some stuff. Else if, then I provide another condition, in which case we will do something else. Else, then we'll do this thing right here. All right. So Robin, where'd you go? Robin left. She got up and walked away because I know she had this question. She's been asking me about it, and she's about to miss out on it. Well, unless she watches the video, which she should, as everyone should. I just so happen to be the greatest coding instructor on the face of the planet. I didn't ask for that. It was just handed down to me. I just accepted it. That's all. Anyways, some people have been asking, some folks popped up. I know Destiny as well, um, about my semicolons. And you may notice in the examples that some of the statements end with a semicolon and others do not. I feel like y'all were reading ahead on these slides. That's why you were asking me. But at any rate, yeah, some of the statements that I write, they end with a semicolon and others do not. Okay. In JavaScript, the semicolon represents the end of a statement. However, it is not mandatory to include a semicolon. There you are, Robin. You were asking about this. You were asking about the semicolon. So here we go. Oh, her headphones are on. Now there you go, Robin. Yes, you asked about the semicolon. Okay. So you notice that sometimes I use a semicolon, sometimes I don't. Okay. In JavaScript, the semicolon represents the end of a statement. All right, that's what it's there for. However, it's not mandatory to include a semicolon. You don't have to. The code will still execute just fine. All right. But I will say, for somebody who is just learning JavaScript, it is a great practice to use the semicolon. It definitely is. And the reason is there are other languages and frameworks in which the semicolon is mandatory in order for the program to execute. For example, we know MySQL. In MySQL, you have to have a semicolon at the end of the statement. You see what happens when you forget to use your semicolon. It does things that we don't want it to do when we forget to use a semicolon in MySQL. Also, in an Express template framework for server-side rendering, EJS, semicolons are mandatory unless they change down. I haven't heard that they had, but a semicolon is mandatory for that. So you had to have a semicolon in EJS, and that's important because you'd be toggling between JavaScript and EJS. So it's good to know that, when you're switching and when you are switching, again, it is mandatory that you use a semicolon at the end of your EJS statements. Also, things like GLSL, which I've played around in when I was learning 3JS. That's another framework or another language, if you will, where the semicolon is mandatory. Okay, so while it's not necessary for you to use, I strongly encourage you as a new developer to practice using semicolons at the end of your statements until you get to a place where you can recognize quickly which language you're writing in and be able to, leave out your semicolon, add your semicolon as you please. Because I'm team no semicolon. All right, I am. I don't like to use a semicolon just cause. And that's the reason why I don't like to just say I don't like to use the log image abbreviation, because when I do that, it's going to attach a semicolon to the end of my statement, and I get mad because it now it doesn't look like I wrote it. It looks like I copied it from somewhere else or what have you. So yeah, I don't like to use semicolon. But again, if you're new, you're learning development. You are going to write in other languages, so you're going to have to know when to turn on that semicolon, brain, and when not. So that's that or that. That's that on that. Okay. So here we go. Let's do this. Oh, okay. Let's do this challenge right here. I got a quick challenge for us. Okay. And we're gonna learn something new in this challenge. Because I think this might be the end of the decision. Oh no, it's not. We'll get to that. Yeah. So you know what? Let's do this first, and then we'll do our challenge. I'll say that for another video. Okay. So we have else if again, where it says if a condition, do some stuff. Let's see. There's Zach. He's team silly. He's team semicolon. So we got factions in here going on right now. So if there's a condition, then we do stuff. Else if there's another condition, then we do something else. Else we do this thing here. And that's how that works. And something just happened here. Here I am. I'm back. I don't know what just happened. Who did that? Somebody kicked me out. Anyways, let me share my screen again. Which one of you did that? Anyways, here we go. Pause for station identification. All right, here we go. So back to what I was saying. All right, they can get really long. Okay. And what we want to do, well, when you're chaining else if statements, what can end up happening is the code can become less readable and also more difficult to write. Okay. So those curly braces and parentheses, it gets really difficult to match them up and pair them when that happens. So when it gets too long, what we can do instead is use the switch statement. And the switch statement evaluates an expression and matches it against a set of cases. The code for the matching cases will then be executed. And if there's no match, a default clause is needed. This is going to look a little close, a little similar to the cases that we used in MySQL. Did y'all lose? Stay in the car, coach. Yes. All right. So here's the syntax for switch. Yeah, somebody, one of those team semicolons folks kicked me out. I definitely believe that. So here we go. Let's do a switch. All right. You're like enough of this no semicolon talk. I got you. So here's a switch statement. And this is the syntax. So we have the switch keyword. Okay. And in parentheses, we have an expression. Open curly brace. And I just put that right there. And then we have a case. And how did I put it here? Oh, I say case one. What in the world? Case and then case one, semicolon. And we do stuff. And then we break. And we have to break. And here we case two. We do stuff. And then we break. I'll do a case 3 or case n. And then case n. I mean, however many cases we have. We do stuff. Then we break. And then if none of those are satisfied, we have a default do stuff. And then we break. So this is the syntax for a switch. Okay. And I have it here in the slides. What in the world is that? I don't know what I did here, causing all kinds of catastrophes. Let me close this out and start up another one because it's getting really weird. Nope. Bring you over here. There we go. Now we can all go back to running our business. We can all go back to running our business. Switch. There we go. So as you can see, here we have switch. We put our expression here, and then curly braces. Case one. We do some stuff, then break. Case two. No, do this instead. Break. Case three. Never mind. Both of those cases do this, and then we break, and then we default to do stuff. Okay, and this expression here is good to note. This expression does not evaluate. This will not evaluate to true. This can be just any expression. Let's do an example. Okay, and this is probably going to be, yeah. So let's do this example here. Matter of fact, yeah, we'll do this right now, and then we'll have a challenge on the next video. So I'm going to say var today, and that is going to get, today's Tuesday at the time I'm doing this video. So var today gets Tuesday. I'm going to write this up both ways. No, I'm not. Yeah, yes, I am. All right, so I'm going to say var today is Tuesday. So I'm going to say if today is equal to, this where it just gets long and crazy. And this is why it's different. Using a switch sometimes is better. If today is Sunday, console.log, I want to sit and watch NFL all day today. Else if today is equal to Monday, console.log, another case of the Mondays. Anybody. Where'd that come from? Another case of the Mondays. Thank you. Else if today is equal to Tuesday, console.log, where are the tacos? Else if today is equal to Wednesday, console.log, hump day. Else if today is equal to Thursday, console.log, it's Friday Eve. Else if today is equal to Friday, console.log, slams laptop for the next 72 hours. Else if today is equal to Saturday, console.log, log. I don't know. I want to sit and watch college football all day today. And now I'll do an else in the event there's an error, so I can console.log error. I was told to be kick. Why do I have to change my name? Who's the one who sucks? I love that. Anyway, here we go. So var today is equal to Tuesday. So this is what this would look like in an if-else chain. Okay. And when I come over here in console, yeah, I do get where the tacos. So that does work, okay, because today I have set today to Tuesday. However, you can see that with all these else ifs, I gotta have all these conditions, all these curly braces, all these parentheses. That is very difficult to read to see where an error message is. If you've tried this out, good. I want you to do this just so you can see like how it works and what it's doing. Okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to refactor this, and I'm going to write this up and write this as a switch statement. Okay. So I already have, well, what I'll do is I'll say switch, and my expression will be today. Like so. I'm going to say case, and then here I can just say case Monday. And then I'm just going to copy this right here. Well, or case Sunday rather. So case Sunday, then I can just console this here. Yep. And then break. And then case Monday, just gonna, again, I'm just gonna copy this. So I'm gonna type that all over again. Break. Case Tuesday. And console this out right there. Break. And then, I mean, I could just keep going, but I'm going to do a default right here. So default console.log an error. And then break. So here I'm saying switch the cases to, well, switch today. Today is a string, which is Tuesday. So in the case that today is equal to Sunday, I want to sit and watch NFL all day. In the case that it's Monday, another case in the Mondays. In the case that it's Tuesday, where the tacos, when I come over here and I see where the tacos. And I could write, you know, all this out. I can fill the rest of that in, but you can see that this looks a little cleaner and more readable. So if your statements or if your conditions are, you know, we have a lot of conditions, then you want to, you would probably want to switch to a switch statement instead of using else if. Just makes it a little easier to read. Also, you don't have to type all of those curly braces and parentheses, etc. Okay, so we'll stop this video here. This video was fun. It like kicked me out for a little bit, and also had some weird stuff going on my slideshows. I think is the evil robot that I just built. As a matter of fact, it turned off my laptop when I said no semicolons. But anyways, so we'll stop with this video And the next video we're going to do again a little challenge with decisions. So yeah. So if you like these videos, you enjoy watching this, and my commentary on so many different things, movie references, music references, books, and etc. A cultured man, as you can see. Comment, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you on the other side of this video.